Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I have a conservative perspective about the world around me. So feedback is immensely important. Feel free to reach out. So some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, just to name a few. Okay, so, and also I have a Shopify link. You're interested in tumblers, t-shirts, take a look. All right, so this episode is all about music fan theories. Well, music theories. Let me rephrase that. Popular theories about musicians, or to say the least. Here we go. Alright, so before I get into the facts about everything, here's my thoughts. I think it's quite interesting the aspects that I have said before. When it comes to music, music is a vocalized form of bringing conscious awareness of things sometimes, and it depends on the genre, but it has a way of saying something that just mere conversation sometimes cannot express. And so when you get into the aspects of breaking down the personas of the musicians, then that in itself, sometimes that takes a whole new light. And then on top of that, when you have presumably some evidence to say otherwise about what you particularly think is true or think you know about someone that is very notable in the world of music, it takes a step back to, some people take a step back and say, oh, okay. It depends on, some people could care less. It just depends. But most of the time, it is, getting into the heart of the matter of, putting on to these people or the industry or the music, giving awareness about what the social aspects of it means at large. So, I'll give you an example here. Tupac. Now, Tupac, Biggie Smalls, people like this. Very controversial, and then the way that they died was really controversial. It said the precedent about the aspects of violence within, black communities, or violence within, that's the supposed to be the lore of black culture, which is, far from the case, because I've stressed again before. I'm not. This means the purpose of what I'm talking about, and I'll get to the main point here. Like everything else, people have different aspects, different personalities, and that does not really have the main, source of what is supposed to be representing a ethnic group. It's beyond that, but for some reason, this is, which is what stereotypes breed off of, is negative entities are perpetually pushed in mainstream culture. And, you know, if it's not popular, then nobody would pay attention to it. You know, it would just cease to exist. But that's not reality. Okay, but it's quite interesting, you know, for instance, with Tupac Shakur. So how is it, and these things have come out more recently, so how is it that someone, you know, that's having training with in the aspects of the classical arts when it comes to ballet and things like this and being a student of that, but you have this hardcore persona of being a gangster rapper? Some have the theory that the aspects of a particular role that he took not too short after his demise, he got too ingrained into that sort of mentality, and that became his stick to where he thought he was that. And then there's just another attribute to that, to where, hey, this is making me a lot of money. I'm going to continue this and just present what is supposed to be the life in which my genre is speaking loudly about. In the same instance with Biggie Smalls, from what I understand, from some facts about him, and then some things that I is just really something else too. But he's not really in the music theories that I have found. But anyway, these people aren't really in the music theories that I have found. But these are relevant theories that majority of people understand or have heard about. And so anyway, going back to it, about surrounding their death and things like that. So going back to it, Tupac Shakur, Biggie Smalls, at one point he was, very interested in studying mathematics seriously. So how does that translate to, I'm going to shoot up the place, and then, for y'all who know the lyrics, please don't shoot up the place. Y'all know the rest, right? So how do these things relate? How do these things make sense here? It really doesn't, because again, it's as if music, at some point in time can be, or some essences can be, caricatures of what people expect. And so when you get into fan theories about, that as if it steps beyond the suspicion of belief to where it gets into the realm of, if you wanted to, I think that theories can really, get into the tinfoil hat arena here. But they drove up really interesting aspects about the human condition. And then, it's something to really consider when you think about the aspects of how prevalent music is in culture. All right, so with this said, I'm going to get into the facts about different musical theories of artists. Here we go. All right, so of course sources will be provided for you. Okay, so yes. And I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper into on top of what I will read to you. All right, so it says that music fan theories encompass a wide range of spectacle ideas, from celebrity replacements to hidden messages and elaborate conspiracies. for instance. And then I'm going to give you my thoughts about this one particular theory. It says, David Bowie predicted Kanye West's rise through the K West sign on the cover of The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, though it is largely seen as coincidental. Yeah, and I think, I agree, and I think the same thing too. And so with the aspects of, I think with having this fan theory, this goes into the aspects of some people might not understand is that either that they have a stage name, like with notable actors. Some actors, there's not their real names. They just picked it, or they either decided to pick it because they think that would make them more billable, or their agent picked it because they thought that it would be more unique, set them apart from everybody else, and give them a jump start in their career. And the same can be said about Kanye West, and even particularly with the aspects of himself. He would know a lot about, it's unfortunate the way with his mental state and everything else is going on about him, and then the outlandish things that he has said and put himself in the limelight. But give credit where credit is due. He's very successful with his music, particular rap music. And then the aspects that he, at one point, was a music producer of that extent. So he would know the ins and outs quite prominently on what to do and how to market yourself quite successfully to be transitioned to be a musical artist. Or, in this case, he chose the rap game. So that's, so I think I agree. I think it's just a coincidence. All right. So another prominent theory suggests Beyonce pretended to be pregnant, which sparks by perceived deflation of her baby bump on an Australian talk show, which was actually due to her dress folding. Yeah, and it's quite interesting with the aspects of, it's alleged that she never really is, one or two things. She never really had a baby, and she was just, putting her on persona of that. We are having, this is, keeping up the appearances. This is what I have to, portray myself as in order to keep up my imagery of, me being married and all these things, and it's expected of me, or the same a lot that it might be something nefarious going on in between Jay-Z and this whole thing with him, running around and so forth, and it might have been like a nudge to say, call that out, but we're going to raise this child, or raise a child as our own, for you to be forced to be, devoted to your nucleus family, which is Beyonce. And it's all kinds of craziness that goes within that. And so again, that is highlighting to the aspects, about black culture, particularly black women, in this disposition and the aspects of the black man and his role in family, and the aspects of black women and their role and their disposition about family too. Now, here's my perspective about that. So, it used to be where, it was very prevalent, all going as far back as, you go to the 50s and so, where it's very prevalent for African Americans to be in the tradition of raising their two-parent household, Christian, Judeo-Christian values, all of these things. And it slowly changed when we get into the aspects after, the civil rights movements, and then, you move forward to the late 60s on to the 70s, it was more prevalent for black women particularly to have absentee fathers or to have the presence of going it alone. And then the gender was pushed more down the line to other ethnicities, but it stuck primarily with the aspects, from the census outside looking in, primarily in the black community. And it says a lot about the aspects of, again, the quote-unquote liberation feminist movement and this so forth, of was it really prevalent into the aspects of the development of the Western culture, particularly the American culture. When you get that there was incentives for women, particularly black women, to be not of the be a one unit household, when you get the aspects of governmental incentives of it and so forth. And then when you move on along the lines, when you get into the 80s, 90s and so forth, I can do everything on my own. I'll be this bad boss, what. And Beyonce in herself took it amongst herself to and personify this to the upteeth degree. And so that in itself is a lot of connotation about maybe that has some traces of that into this theory about her. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so the idea that Andrew W.K. and David Grohl are the same person, or that Grohl created W.K. as a studio project, has circulated despite no evidence. And that's quite interesting when, getting into the aspects of that too. With when artists are trying to test the waters about and go on and cross on to different genres to see how well that goes, and if that transition will work or fail, it's easier to just be unassuming about it until it's successful. And that's quite interesting too when you think about things like that. How that happens a lot in the music business. Lorde is rumored to be older than her public image suggests, based on the maturity of her early music. And this has been going on a lot about the aspects of, this possibly can't be someone so young have so much talent, and that disregards the aspects of that, this expectation, you about what is, this idea that you, with this phrase, is really prevalent to this. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So what do I mean by this? So, for the most part, it's, especially in American culture and in outward, it's being pushed. Oh, wow, youth is all that is solely powerful. But when you have a musician like Lorde, who is multiply talented, and then she can sing, she can do all these things, but she doesn't have anybody, she's not a industry plant, she's not auto-tune, she's not using auto-tune to her advantage and so forth. It begs the question, what is she really? Is she really what she says she is? Is she much older? So it's like, do you want someone that's credible and young, or do you just want someone that's fitting the stereotype of being young, but more comfortable young by being daft or ditzy or what have you? That's something to say about that too. All right, so subliminal backward messages in songs such as those alleged in Judas Priest's work have been debunked as listeners' imaginations have gone. So, this is making me think about the aspects of Tripper Gore, And then going on to when Columbine, when they were saying, well, first Triple Gore, because Judas Priest was brought in and was saying, oh, these are the examples pushing their agendas. These people are the examples of why our youth culture is so corrupt, because they listen to this types of heinous music. And then even more so, if you play it back, the music, you can hear some satanic message, and then no wonder they do all these weird things, right? When that's farther from the truth. And then sometimes some artists might put something subliminally into something, but just to have, again, like a mass hysteria about something, that's not very helpful into really understanding the aspects of why certain things happen, particularly when you talk about the realms of decency with a youth and their involvement with certain things. I think it's far better to get into the heart of the matter, to ask those hard questions and just really talk to your child, and you have your child, or youth culture at large. Just really talk and engage, instead of just blatantly just having this blanket about, oh, this is this. And then the same case with what was going on with Columbine. Nobody really took the time to see the underlying details about why these boys committed this horrible event. That they were crying out for help. It was all these things. That's not excusable, but it just also is a second layer to the aspects of how there's always two sides to every story. And we also have to pinpoint to the issue that this is a real thing, where that's when we get in the aspects of bullying, and then we get in the aspects of not only peer bullying, and you get in the aspects of adults having their persuasion being bullies themselves too, in the aspects of making things and internalizing things and making things worse, to where it's giving the environment for these children to act this way. And there's something to say about that too. All right, so Jay-Z is linked to Illuminati, and Elvis is believed by some to have faked his death. Phil Collins is accused of letting a man drown, based on lyrics of In the Air Tonight, though the song is a metaphor for his divorce. The theory that Courtney Love was involved in Kurt Cobain's death has is being very persistent since 1994. And, you gotta look at that and say, most of the evidence when it came out, it said that in the way it is, it just seems odd, And then also with the aspects of her track record of Courtney Love, you gotta look at that for what it is too, because she had made it very known that she wanted to be famous. And that means that any and all costs. And so there's something to think about, where that could be true. It's just something to think about and consider, when you look at what's all there. All right, so the most enduring theory is that Paul McCartney is actually dead, which claims Paul McCartney died in 1960 and was replaced by a look-alike, with fans finding hidden clues in Beatle albums. All right, so I'm going to get into some more theories. Hold on just a minute. All right, so um, all right, so there's a theory that says that the Depeche Mode singer is actually a vampire. So David Gann, for those who don't, those who don't know who Depeche Mode is, Depeche Mode was a new wave, in that realm of that flash term, part of the '80s synth pop, sort of edgy, maybe a little bit rock, but more synth pop, new wave band. And it's from I Just Can't Get Enough to Never Let Me Down Again, and all these kind of things, Personal Jesus. And so this mystique is, I think it helps with the aspects of the imagery of the band. All right, so here we go. Get more into this. It says that Dave Gann has admitted to sleeping in a coffin-shaped bed, and once even allegedly bit a journalist on the neck backstage during Depeche Mode's 1994 tour with Primal Scream. He is quoted as saying this: "I definitely could have been a vampire," Gann told Uncut in 2001, before adding an important caveat in my own head. He has since chalked this strange behavior up to a combination of, again, he has admitted and he has said this very candidly, that he had issues with substance abuse, and in this case, too, on top of that, depression. He is quoted as saying this: "I remember reading about it afterward, but I don't really remember doing it." So Gann added, "In all seriousness, I was really starting to move to this place where I really believed that I was what I was creating. My whole life was a spinal tap at that time." So an actual coffin was apparently later delivered to Gann while Depeche Mode was playing South American dates as a joke. He supposedly took naps in before performing. All right, so the CIA killed Bob Marley. Even the official account of Bob Marley's death is pretty weird. He died in May of 1981 after a toe injury from a soccer match revealed a lesion under the nail. Diagnosed with melanoma, melanoma, Marley refused to have the toe amputated. So the cancer spread through Marley's body, eventually killing him. So conspiracy theory says that it wasn't that simple. The CIA supposedly set their sights on Marley, whose growing influence was a message of peace went contrary to his goals. The son of a former CIA detective, William Colby, reportedly gave Marley a pair of boots apt with a poison-coated copper wire near the toe. Some believe Marley tried on the boots and inevitably sealed his demise. Others believe the CIA had already tried to take Marley out with sharpshooters who missed their target. So Marley had in fact survived a 1976 assassination attempt by 3 gunmen at his home in Jamaica. So Hotel California was about devil worshipping. The Eagles' chart-topping 1977 single, Hotel California, has been associated with Satanism in certain circles. The lyrics dotted with a bang. And if you're interested, I had talked about this song, Hotel California, so check it out. So, I'll do you one better. I'll link it for you if you're interested too below. So the lyrics dotted with a van attempt to kill a beast, specific reference to hell, and another one that guests may never leave, probably got this rumor started. So, excuse me. So there, the Eagles members had a group of fans seen standing on the courtyard of a Spanish-style inn. Above them on the balcony looms a mysterious figure who seems to theorize the founder of the Church of Satan was its Anton LaVey. So the photographs, according to one theory, were taken on the church grounds. Some of the elements of this theory even make their way into mainstream media sources, including the Milwaukee Sentinel. So the shadowy figure was in fact a woman hired for the photo shoot, and they were definitely not at LaVey's church. The cover shot is from the Beverly Hills Hotel, while the gatefold photo was taken at a then newly renovated inn called the Lido on the corridor of Yucca Street and Wilcox Avenue in Hollywood. So the hotel was later turned into an apartment complex. All right, so there's a theory that says the singer Blondie, Debbie Harry, was actually abducted by a serial killer. So Blondie's Debbie Harry is a certain. Let me say that again. Blondie's Debbie Harry is certain she was picked up by somebody she swears was Ted Bundy. So during a late night walk on New York City's Lower East Side in the early 1970s, she said this: "I took the ride because I couldn't get a cab," she told ABC News in 2003. But Harry immediately began to sense something was not right. "I looked down and there was no door handles," she said in 2010. In a 2010 interview with The Telegraph, "The inside of the car was stripped. The hairs on the back of my neck just stood up. Increasingly concerned about the man's demeanor, Harry reached out of the window and opened the door. Then she's also quoted by saying this: "I almost got run over by a cab after jumping out," she told ABC. Harry didn't decide that her strange encounter was actually with Harry. Excuse me. Let me say it again. Harry didn't decide that her strange encounter was actually with Bundy until '89, when he was executed. She began sharing the story with the news media not long after. The problem: Bundy wasn't known to have visited the Big Apple then, or any other time in his life. He didn't officially begin his abduction and murder spree until early '74, and those first crimes took place in the West Coast. Later, Bundy escaped to Florida from a Colorado jail before he finally was caught in the late '70s. So, it says the Grateful Dead paid for a final show, Rainbow. Something amazing happened at the conclusion of the Grateful Dead's first 50th anniversary farewell show in 2015. So Rainbow covered over the entire stadium. The timing at the end of a 17-minute set closing rendering of the Viola Lee Blues seemed a little too convenient to some conspiracy lovers. A supposed insider even alleged that the Dead paid $50K to beam a fake rainbow into the sky at just the right moment. All right, so it says that a fan theory says, and then some say this too about Ray Charles, but it says that Stevie Wonder isn't blind. So the idea that Stevie Wonder can actually see was nothing more than a fringe segment before 2010. That's when Wonder on stage for Paul McCartney performed at the White House East Room appeared nonchalant and catched a mic stand that the former Beatles star knocked over. It's something. But it seems that that's just an example of his offbeat sense of humor. So Jimi Hendrix was actually murdered. So Jimi Hendrix in 1970, his death was mysterious from the beginning. An ambulance crew found his body in the hotel room of a woman he just met, with the door wide open. So the autopsy, however, was far more straightforward. So says he was suggests he did not that the coroner suggested but did not confirm Hendrix's cause of death. So to go on to this, says he fast forward a few decades, and a former roadie put forward a conspiracy theory saying James Tappy Wright, former manager Michael Jeffrey admitted to killing Hendrix by purposely giving him pills and wine. There's actually, let me see, I'm going to go on to say, Bob Dylan stole a signature song from a student. Bob Dylan's second single in 1963, Blowing in the Wind, became a sorry about that, guys. It became a career defining moment, but did he write it? The answer is no. So at least according to a New Jersey high school student named Lori Wyatt, who claimed in an article for a school paper, all right, I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so this is very strange, and then in the event of Stephen King, with him saying his crazy antics that he has come out and said over the past years, it's unfortunate, especially now, but still, I don't know. Don't impose something on somebody just because of, in this case of this theory, because of their, work. That's strange too. All right, so if you were really certain that a famous horror writer, rather than the convicted Mark David Chapman, actually murdered John Lennon, you want to shout it from the rooftops, or in this case of Steve Lightfoot during 2009 town council meeting in Sarasota, I guess, Florida. So Lightfoot's theory appears to have been developed around a photo of Lennon taken on the day of his murder, in which the one-time Beatle signs an autograph for Chapman. Lightfoot thinks the guy in the photograph more closely resembles Stephen King. He claims Lennon's murder was clearly by political figures like Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon, who long been angered by the outspoken artist and anti-war stance. This goes into the long-standing theory that the government killed Lennon, and the FBI did in fact have a huge file on Lennon. All right, so I'm going on to this and go add on to that with Paul McCartney. And then I'm going to end on Elvis. Paul McCartney has spent the third act of his career crisscrossing the globe on a seamlessly never-ending tour, or Paul McCartney's body double has anyway. So a very popular theory dating back to 1969 suggests that the former Beatles star actually died in the mid-60s, and they covered it up by hiring a lookalike. Then for reasons that aren't completely understood, the Beatles began leaving clues for fans to figure out the whole scam. Some fans think they hear John Lennon saying, "I buried Paul at the end of Strawberry Fields forever." That the car accident that took his life is specifically referenced in A Day in the Life. And that the that this is shown on the cover of the 1969's Abbey Road is actually supposed to be McCartney's funeral. So Lennon is a white-clad clergyman. Ringo Starr is a mourner in all black, and McCartney is actually dead, since he's wearing no shoes, and George Harrison is the denim-wearing grave digger, or Sleuths took to rewinding the song, and they have allegedly found other messages. So a portion of Revolution Number 9 supposedly reveals the phrase "Turn me on, dead man" when played backwards. Initially, McCartney swiped a line from Mark Twain, issuing a statement that says, "Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated." Later on in that BBC interview, McCartney pushed back harder, though apparently to no avail. "If the conclusion you reach is that I'm dead, you are wrong," he says, because I am alive in Scotland. All right, so I'll end on this, and then these two with Elvis, which is he is, and he will still be a very prevalent figure. And some people want to hold on to the theory that the aspects of, very notable characters are people in the limelight, that they, not characters, but people in the limelight, personalities in the limelight, that they never really died. They're still alive, in that hope of that, it's more to life than what it is, or it was more to what happened than what it is. So Elvis presumably, most certainly, did not leave the building on August 16th of 1977. And at least that's what scores of people believe to this day. They have even gotten a nickname, the Alivers. Evidence in their mind, abandons, and shadowy appearances now appear as an age Presley springs up with the meteoromic irregularity. So, Alivers point out to the misspelling of his name on the tombstone at Graceland, which says Aaron instead of, it's spelled AAARON instead of 1ARON as his middle name, and to a coroner's diagnosis of the cardiac arrhythmia, which can be determined in the dead body, and to rumors of Presley sweating in his casket is proof that the figure was made of wax, and to the rumor that nobody ever cashed out his life insurance policy. Then there's the curious fact that his autopsy was placed under seal. What the Alivers wonder is what is everyone hiding about that. They suggest that Presley had become fed up with the fame and was in ill health, so he faked his death in order to go back to a simpler way of life. All right, so what do you all think about this aspects of this episode? Feel free to reach out. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.